I was reborn. Reborn into the 3rd year of my marriage with Peter. It was also the last year he ever loved me, because soon after, he would meet the true love of his life. For that woman, he would go so far as to stand against the entire Chan family, pressure my parents, and eventually destroy my family's company. He drove my parents to take their own lives. My brother and sister were pushed to the brink of ruin. And me, I jumped into the freezing sea with my unborn child. In this life, I won't fight anymore. I want nothing. I don't want Peter anymore. All I ask is for the Chan family to live in peace. Chapter 1. The sunlight of a spring morning was as warm and gentle as ever, so gentle that I almost forgot what it felt like to have it on my skin. I looked at Peter's sleeping face. He was young and handsome. I'd always loved the sharp angle of his jawline. So sharp, just like the ruthless methods he used against my family. The Chan family, so heartless, so unforgiving, with no regard for the past. Even when I was willing to sign the divorce papers and give up the title of Mrs. Law to Julia, he still didn't stop. He had to drive every last member of the Chan family into ruin, one by one. Only then would he feel that no one could ever hurt his precious Julia, the woman he truly loved. You're awake. Why didn't you call me? I'll make you breakfast. Peter opened his eyes just a sliver, pulled me into his arms, and kissed me lightly on the forehead. He always kissed me so gently, even when we made love. He held back, careful not to hurt me. He always said he didn't want to cause me pain. But this man who could be so kind, was the same man who watched me run after his car, bloody and bruised, begging him to give the Chan family a chance to survive. He didn't stop. He didn't care that I'd fallen on the highway, that my head was bleeding, that the skin on my arms and legs had been scraped raw. You see, when he loves someone, he is endlessly tender, but when he doesn't, he is colder than a stranger. I'm not hungry. Peter noticed something was off. He propped himself up and sat beside me, cradling my face in both hands. What's wrong, my Elizabeth? Was I too much last night? Are you mad at me? He teased lightly, eyes deep and full of nothing but me. Ever since the memory of my past life came flooding back at dawn, I hadn't been able to sleep. Childhood friends unaware of the deep feelings between them. The young girl, in her innocence, gently brushed against the stirrings of love. I believed I was meant to love only him. But not anymore. I no longer dare to love. The price of loving him is far too steep. I can't pay it again. I looked into his smiling eyes and said, word by word, let's get a divorce. Chapter 2. Peter was still joking around even as he headed to the office, insisting it must have been because he couldn't hold back last night, that he was too rough. And that's why I was mad at him. He thought I was just messing around when I brought up divorce so early in the morning. I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the huge breakfast he had made. I had no appetite at all. If it had been the past, I would have eaten every last bite. Peter was a great cook, something his mother trained him in since he was young, just so that he could make me a different kind of breakfast every day in the future. The Law family and the Chan family had business ties that went back many years. We were also neighbors. My mother and Peter's mother had gone from rivals to best friends who shared everything with each other. When they eventually had kids, they even joked about arranging a marriage between us. But in the end, they both gave up on that idea. They said they would always respect our wishes and never force us into anything. Peter was 3 years older than me and the only son of the Law family. When his mother was pregnant, she was kidnapped. It was my mom who risked everything to save her. Ever since, Peter's mom had been deeply remorseful for the conflicts they used to have. She constantly apologized. My mother, being the carefree and bold woman she was, just waved her hand and said all those fights were just her being gracious and letting the Law matriarch win. That line made Peter's mom laugh, and they'd grown closer ever since. Unlike Peter, I wasn't alone in this world. I had an older brother, Lucas, and a second sister, Roxanna. They adored me, no matter where they were in the world. They always found a way to send me the best of everything. But in the end, these wonderful people died in the most tragic ways. The human heart, it's the most unpredictable thing in this world. I won't let history repeat itself. Not this time. Chapter 3. It was almost noon by the time I drove back home. At this hour, Dad would definitely be at the company. Usually, it was just Mom at home. But surprisingly, Mom wasn't there, Roxanna was. Normally she'd be on a business trip somewhere around the world at this time. Roxanna rushed toward me. Elizabeth, why are you back so suddenly? I missed you so much. Let me take a look. You've lost weight. And those dark circles. Whatever is bothering you, just tell me. I'll take care of it. Was it that bastard Peter bullying you again? Don't worry. Tell me what happened and I'll beat the crap out of him for you. Roxanna was 5 years older than me and already a strong, capable woman helping Dad with the family business. I hugged her tightly and buried my face in her shoulder, hiding the tears that were threatening to spill. I missed you too, sis. In my past life, the last time I saw you was in the morgue. You were lying there in that cold, lifeless room, and no one dared claim your body. You were covered in wounds. The fatal one was in your chest, a gaping hole. I don't know what you went through. Your face was so mutilated it was barely recognizable. If it weren't for the birthmark we both knew so well since childhood, I wouldn't have even realized it was you, my sister Roxanna. You were always so beautiful and confident, admired and chased after by countless people. And yet in the end, you lay alone in such a cold, desolate place. I can't accept that. Roxanna should be standing at the top of the world, admired and revered by all. Not that ending. I bit my lip and forced my tears back. My heart was more determined than ever. Sis, in this life, I will protect you, no matter what. Chapter 4. Roxanna probably thought I was sick and babbling nonsense. She kept checking my forehead until she was sure I was fine. But that sentence clearly made her really happy. She excitedly shared what I said on every social platform, her friend circle, our family group, her work chat, and everyone came to see. Look at this! My sweet little Elizabeth said she's going to protect me for life. Do you all have this? You don't, right? I'm sharing it just to make you jealous. People flooded the comments just to join the fun. One comment, from an account with a wolf icon and the username Simply Law. Read, "What do you mean you're sweet, Elizabeth? She's mine." That was Peter's social media account. When Roxanna saw me staring blankly at the comment, she smirked mischievously. Look at him, just like a mutt worried someone's about to steal his bone. TCH. What a dog. Roxanna had always disliked Peter. When we were younger, they even used to fight. Those fights only stopped when I cried. Back then, whenever Roxanna called Peter a bastard, I'd get upset. I'd even argue with her a little. But now, I felt nothing, still basking in the happiness of my promise to protect her. Roxanna didn't see it coming when I told her about my decision to divorce Peter. She was stunned. She kept confirming it, asking me if I was serious. She had seen me, as a young girl, constantly chasing after Peter, talking about him every single day. She'd watched me grow through school, through love and marriage, all of it centered around Peter. And now, I was about to end a love that had consumed me since youth. Of course she was shocked. You're serious, Elizabeth? Roxanna saw I wasn't joking. She gently cupped my face. All right, I don't know what happened, and I won't ask. But if it's a decision made by our Elizabeth, then I'll support it. I'll help you. Chapter 5. Later, I found out that Dad had gone abroad with Mom for a vacation. All company matters had temporarily been handed over to my older brother and Roxanna. After our conversation, Roxanna returned to her room and had a long call with our parents. I didn't know what they discussed. But when Roxanna came out, she looked visibly relieved. She smiled as she walked over and told me that Mom and Dad already knew about my intention to divorce Peter. They would first talk it over with Peter's parents, and then proceed with the divorce process. But Mom said, "We're not children anymore. Once a decision is made, there's no going back." I knew that. No matter how reckless I seemed, no matter how shocking my actions were to others, my family would always support me unconditionally. They'd clean up the mess, take care of everything. In my past life, I failed them. I'm sorry. I chose the wrong person to love, and that led to a cascade of tragedies. In this life, please let me protect them. Please give me a chance to make things right. As for Peter, whatever bond we had ended in the last life, if love has become pain, it's time to let it go. The Elizabeth who loved Peter has already sunk into the depths of the sea with their unborn child. The Elizabeth who stands here now only loves herself and her family. She won't and doesn't dare love anyone else again. Chapter 6. I called Peter and told him I was going to stay at my family's home for a while. At first, he didn't agree, but after he got a call from his parents, he called me back. His voice noticeably panicked. Elizabeth, listen to me. Please don't make any decisions while you're angry, okay? You want to stay at home? Sure, as long as you want whatever you need, but please, don't make any rash choices. Wait for me. Let me talk to you in person. I don't know what I did wrong, but at least give me a chance to explain. Please don't just sentence me like this. Please. Elizabeth, are you listening? It's fine if you don't want to speak. Just listen to me. I'll finish everything up today, and then we can go out. Take a break together, okay? I held the phone, but I didn't say anything for a long time. Peter was still talking, I think, but I couldn't hear him anymore. My mind wandered to that day when I had begged him the same way. I had called him so many times. 10 times? 20? 100? I couldn't even remember anymore. I called from morning until night, dialing over and over, and finally, he picked up. His voice was full of irritation. What is it? That day, I hadn't eaten a single bite or taken a sip of water. My voice was already dry and hoarse, but none of that mattered. I cleared my throat and forced myself to speak gently. Peter, my dad's company, something happened. You know about it, right? I know, I did it. I had suspected it, but hearing the truth still made my legs go weak. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing as tears streamed down my face. Why? Why would you do this? My family never did anything to hurt you. They watched you grow up. Why would you? That's enough. If this is what you're going to talk about, I'm hanging up. Shoo, go back to sleep. It's no one, just someone unimportant. The next thing he said was gentle, soothing, but it wasn't meant for me. And in that instant, I understood. Was it because my family did something to Julia? I can explain. They didn't mean it. They were just trying to defend me. If you want revenge, take it out on me, please. I've never asked you for anything before. Peter, for the sake of the years we grew up together, please don't completely destroy my father's company. I beg you. Peter, are you listening? Hello? Please don't hang up. I don't remember what else I said after that. Just that. Eventually, the only thing I heard on the other end was the cold, repeating tone of a disconnected call. Not long after that call, Mom messaged me. She said everything was taken care of, that she and Dad had handled it all, and I didn't need to worry. She told me to listen to my siblings, said I would always be her precious little princess, held in the palm of her hand, that none of the world's troubles had anything to do with me. All she wanted was for me to live a carefree life. Something didn't sit right with me. I rushed back to the Chan home that very night. The house looked the same, bright, lights on everywhere, but I didn't see Mom watching her idle dramas in the living room, or Dad beside her with his finance news, stealing glances at her every now and then. They weren't there. I walked upstairs. Their bedroom door was open, but the room was empty. There was something strange in the air, a metallic scent. Until that moment, I had never known a person could bleed so much. I had been protected too well. So well. It had made me naive, stupid. So much. So much blood. Mom and Dad were lying hand in hand on the cold bathroom floor. There was so much blood that there wasn't even a place to step. I stared blankly as people came in and out of my home, handling their bodies. Someone was speaking to me, but it felt like I was trapped in a vacuum. I could only see their mouths moving, but I heard nothing. I snapped back to the present and realized the call was still ongoing. Peter was still talking. It had been over an hour, but all I could see was the bathroom floor drenched in blood. The phone slipped from my fingers and crashed hard onto the floor. Chapter 7. I stayed at home for a week. Roxanna stayed with me every day. She didn't even go to the company. On the 8th day, Mom, Dad, and my older brother Lucas came back. As soon as Mom walked through the door, she ran to me and wrapped me tightly in her arms. My sweet girl, as long as you've come home, that's all that matters. This place will always be your safe haven, no matter how tired or hurt you are. As long as you look back, your home will always be right here. We're all here. Come home. Baby. Her warm and steady embrace made me finally lose control of the tears I'd been holding back. I cried loudly in her arms. How I wanted to tell her, no, our home, and all of you, you were gone. None of you were left. How could a cold, empty house be called a home? Through my tear-blurred vision, I saw Roxanna standing nearby, heartbroken and distressed. Dad and Lucas both sighed. Lucas came over and patted my back. Tisk. TSK. My little baby sister is still such a crybaby, grown up and still sobbing in Mom's arms. So embarrassing. Mom swatted Lucas with a playful scowl. Your sister's hurting and you're teasing her? Roxanna fanned the flames from the side. Exactly. No wonder you can't get a girlfriend. Big bro, serves you right. Go on. Mom. Smack him again. Mom ended up playfully smacking them both. The two of them, normally so composed and stern in the office, were now yelping like kids as their mom chased them around the room. It was hilarious. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Lucas rubbed his butt where he'd been smacked. Mom. Little sis finally smiled. Isn't that enough? Your hand's fine. But my butt still hurts. You're a grown man. Can't you show a little dignity in front of your sisters? Mom shook her head in mock disappointment. All right. Enough. Your mom just recovered from being sick. Don't wear her out. Dad, who had been watching silently, finally spoke up. The moment Dad spoke, my older siblings, both terrified of him, froze on the spot. Mom was sick? When did this happen? What happened to her? Panic gripped me as I turned to look at Mom. Mom hugged me again, throwing a mild glare at Dad. I told you not to mention it. She gently stroked my hair and said softly, don't listen to your dad. I'm fine. Just a small issue. A couple of 4 bags and it was over. Roxanna saw I still didn't believe it. So she comforted me. That day, after I called Mom, she rushed back in such a hurry that she fainted. She ended up staying in the hospital for a few days. As soon as she was discharged, she came straight home to see you. The doctor said it was nothing serious, just emotional stress from being too anxious. It's my fault. I didn't explain everything clearly during the call. Mom thought something terrible had happened to you. I clarified afterward, and she waited until she was a bit better before coming home. Lucas added, don't worry, we're all here for you. We came back specifically for your situation. Have you really made up your mind? I looked at Roxanna, who smiled warmly at me, then at Dad, strong and steady, then at Lucas, who was waiting seriously for my answer. Finally, I looked at my mother, eyes full of love and tenderness. I nodded solemnly. I'm absolutely certain. I've truly decided to divorce Peter. Lucas nodded too. Good. I've already drafted dozens of proposals on how to handle the divorce with the Law family. Our families have had long-standing business ties. I've prepared the most reasonable terms that won't affect our cooperation. Little sis, we'll handle all the arrangements, but when it comes to Peter, you'll still need to talk to him in person. Roxanna hesitated a moment before taking my hand. Elizabeth, I haven't said anything until now, but that jerk, that guy from the Law family, has been standing under your window every night. Whole nights. Just standing there, the grounds covered in cigarette butts. I remember he never used to smoke. So, he must really be heartbroken. Don't blame me for meddling, but if there are any misunderstandings between you two, I think you should clear the air. Even if you're going to divorce, make it a clean, honest break. Don't leave any confusion behind, okay? Thank you, sis. I know what I need to do. I thought to myself, there were still some things I needed to say to Peter in person, if only to make sure he doesn't end up holding a grudge against the Chan family again for some mysterious reason. Chapter 8. The commercial street bustled with people coming and going. I sat by the window in a well-known cake shop, waiting for Peter to arrive. Hello. Here's your rose lychee milk crepe and whispers after the rain tea. Please enjoy. Thank you. The staff girl gave me a sweet smile before turning to help other customers. I watched her cheerful figure, full of youth and vitality. If I were to choose two, I'd probably pick someone like her, fresh and radiant, like spring itself, just like Peter did. Elizabeth. I turned around, startled when I saw Peter. He'd always been meticulous about his appearance. He couldn't stand even the slightest wrinkle in his suit. Because of this, he had fired several housekeepers before, especially after he got together with Julia in the last life. He'd go as far as coordinating his tie color every single day. But now, Peter's hair was messy, his beard unshaven, and his custom-made suit looked like a wilted, pickled vegetable hung out to dry. He noticed my gaze lingering on his disheveled appearance. Looking down, he muttered a curse under his breath. He reached out, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away before he could touch me. I placed my hands under the table and looked away. Okay. I won't touch you. Don't be mad. Can I sit? Peter's cautious tone couldn't help but remind me of the Peter from the past, cold and cruel, his shadow overlapping with the man standing before me. Elizabeth. I won't spare a single member of the Chan family, not even you. If you dare lay a finger on Julia again, I'll break your hand. You should have died with the rest of the Chan family. Even now, I could hear the venomous hatred in Peter's voice echoing in my ears. I abruptly stood up. My legs slammed into the table corner, sending a jolt of pain up my spine and a sting to my nose. Peter reached for my arm, crouching down to rub my leg. I stepped back, leaving his hand frozen midair. He didn't move. He didn't even look up. I couldn't see his expression. I fought to suppress my emotions, reminding myself again and again, don't think about the past now. I'm fine. No need. Peter didn't respond. He slowly stood up. He was already over a head taller than me, standing there, silent and expressionless. The pressure he exuded was suffocating. His shadow loomed over me like a dark cloud, as if I were trapped in a nightmare I could never wake from. I trembled slightly. You're afraid of me. I knew something was off that morning. Elizabeth, why? I wanted to know too. Why did you have to destroy the Chan family so completely in our last life? I asked that question over and over, until I was numb, until I started to doubt myself. But what was the point of knowing? The Chan family was gone. Even if I had the answer, would it bring them back? Would it change anything? No. So what good would it do if you found out now? I knew I was being unfair. This life's Peter shouldn't have to pay for the blood debts of the past life's Peter. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't love him like before. That trust had already shattered. Sooner or later, we'd end up the same as before. He'd hate me to the bone. A battle to the bitter end. Peter, some people are just not meant to last. Like you and me. Divorce is the best thing for both of us. Let go. I stepped aside. It was time for me to return to the path I should have taken long ago. But Peter grabbed my arm with force and yanked me back. Not meant to last? Divorce? Let me tell you, Elizabeth, ever since the day you married me, divorce was never an option. He leaned down closer. I could see the bloodshot veins in his eyes. He gritted his teeth like he was about to devour me. And I admit, I was afraid of him. In my past life, my love for Peter had reached the extreme. So had my hate. And in the end, so had my fear. I didn't dare to gamble on what this madman might do next. When I saw the fear reflected in his eyes, the fear on my own face, I was startled. I turned my head away. Peter noticed too. He eased his grip a little, but didn't let go. Sir, please don't be so rough with a lady. Otherwise, I'll call the police. That voice. I turned to see the girl in the cake shop uniform holding onto Peter's sleeve. Her voice loud and clear. She was the same girl who had brought me cake and tea just a little while ago. I saw the shock flash across Peter's face. I tilted my head slightly to glance at her. She was the one Peter had treasured and protected like a rare gem in our previous life. Julia. Chapter 9. They stood there, face to face, amid the bustling, glittering city street, locked in a gaze that seemed to transcend time and space. Two people destined to love will always find each other again. And me? I was nothing more than a clown, standing in their way. This farce of three people was finally drawing to a close. The clown was due to exit the stage. The reason I chose this cafe to meet Peter today was simple, so that he could see the one he truly loved. Because in my past life, I had investigated and discovered that it was right here, in this very cake shop, where Peter first met Julia, who was working here part-time. Isn't fate funny? I had known Peter for over 20 years, and yet I lost to a girl he had known for barely over 20 days. What a joke. What a pitiful, pathetic joke I was. Even after they got together, I still foolishly hoped I could break them apart. I arrogantly brought Julia a check for $50 million. asking her to leave Peter. I thought that kind of money could solve anything. But she slapped me with her refusal. Julia didn't care about the money at all. She said not everyone in this world was driven by wealth. She was there for love. She loved Peter, pure and simple. That same night, Peter found out what I'd done. His eyes were cold as ice. His gaze sharp and ruthless as he told me never to use such dirty tactics on someone as pure-hearted as Julia. It was the first time, in all these years, that Peter had spoken to me with such frigid disdain. 1,000 needles stabbed at my chest, but I understood Peter. I knew then that nothing could be changed anymore. He truly, deeply loved Julia, and now, I've returned her to him, his one true love. Maybe, just maybe, his hatred for the Chan family would fade too. I closed my eyes, then looked back at Peter. Let go of me, you're hurting her. Peter frowned. What? I didn't want to explain. I pried his hand off and guided Julia into his arms myself. I raised both of my hands, showing clearly that I hadn't even touched the hem of her clothing. Please, don't ever doubt again that I would harm her. Julia looked confused by my actions, but when she looked up at the tall man who now stood protectively in front of her, her pale cheeks blushed faintly pink. She's yours. I'm returning her to you. We're done. I swear to the heavens, if I ever harm Julia, even a single strand of her hair, let me die a violent death, and may my soul never know peace. For all eternity. Peter froze. He pushed Julia aside and stepped toward me. What's wrong with you? Do you even hear what you're saying? Come home with me. I shook my head and backed away. Suddenly, memories flashed before my eyes. I covered my face and forced myself to block them out. It's over. Everything that happened is already in the past. Right now. I still have time. They're still here. I'm not too late. I'm not too late. Elizabeth. The world around me began to spin. I collapsed to the ground. It felt like people were rushing toward me. And maybe, Peter was one of them. Chapter 10. Doctor. How is she? Has the patient experienced anything traumatic recently? For example, has she been persecuted by someone or been in a serious car accident? Lucas and Roxanna exchanged glances, both of their faces filled with shock. Roxanna replied, No, not at all. She's never mentioned anything like that. And my sister's social circle is very small, just close family friends and business partners. A car accident? Impossible. Lucas added, That's right, Dr. Ning. Please tell us clearly, what's going on with our little sister? Dr. Ning let out a quiet sigh and muttered, This doesn't make sense. He explained, We ran a full panel of tests. Physically, the patient is in excellent health, no illnesses at all. The issue is psychological. She's suffering from severe psychological trauma. Clinically, it's diagnosed as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It usually occurs after someone experiences, or witnesses, events involving death or serious harm, either to themselves or others. You can look up more details online. But in short, her condition is critical. She's on the verge of emotional collapse, and she's highly vulnerable to self-destructive behavior. You mean, she might try to end her life? Peter suddenly asked. Roxanna gritted her teeth the moment she saw him. You bastard. You still have the nerve to stay here? I told you to get out. It's all your fault. She was fine until she saw you. I never should have let her meet you again. Enough. This is a hospital. Calm down. Lucas said as he held Roxanna back and walked over to Peter. He couldn't hide his surprise. Just a month ago, Peter had looked completely different. Now he was a shadow of his former self. Lucas said, You heard the doctor. Whatever the reason behind this, the most important thing now is to get her treated. Peter, completely distraught, grabbed the doctor's coat. Yes, treat her. Please, do whatever it takes. I'll pay anything. Just save her, please. I'm begging you. And then, he fell to his knees. Roxanna had never seen Peter beg anyone like this. She turned away, unable to look. Lucas sighed and pulled Peter up. Dr. Ning is a specialist. Listen to what he says first. Dr. Ning said, I understand how you all feel right now. I recommend a combination of medication and hypnosis. Also, you must keep her away from anything or anyone that could trigger her again. She can't take another shock. Hypnosis isn't a guaranteed cure, it's just to help soothe her emotions. What matters most is that you, her family, Observe her behavior and what she says. Support her. Let her do what she wants. Don't go against her. I opened my eyes to find Roxanna sitting beside me with a cup of floral tea. When she saw me awake, she smiled and handed me the tea. Perfect timing. I just brewed this. Try it. It has a new flower blend this time. Guess what it is? If you get it right, you get a prize. I took a small sip. It tasted wonderful. Right. This is for you. She handed me a document. It was a divorce agreement. Peter had already signed it. I smiled, feeling like the heaviest weight in my heart had finally dropped. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt free. Sis, I want to go back to school. Roxanna froze for a second, then began brushing my hair with a comb. Of course you can. Which school do you want to go to? I'll help you apply. Sis, I want to get in by my own efforts. Don't pull strings or pay anyone off. I'm grown up now, trust me. One day, I'll be your right-hand woman. Roxanna gently braided my hair, just like when we were kids, making pretty braids for each other. All right, you have my word. Don't worry about anything. Your big sister will always have your back. If our Elizabeth wants the moon, I'll find a way to bring it down for you. From that day on, Peter completely disappeared from my life. Marriage, love, those things no longer had anything to do with me. I spent my days in the library, or studying with tutors Roxanna had hired. I had married Peter while still in college. We divorced shortly after graduation. A bit dramatic. Really. Luckily, I had always been a good student. I quickly caught up on everything I'd missed. In the fall, I was accepted into the Wharton School of Business, majoring in finance. The day I left, Mom, Dad, Lucas, and Roxanna all came to see me off. Lucas and Roxanna originally wanted to accompany me all the way to school, but I turned them down. The company needed them. Mom wasn't in great health, and Dad was juggling work and taking care of her. He couldn't afford to burn out too. Roxanna hugged me tightly. My little sister is amazing. I'm so proud of you, but I hate letting you go. Please take care of yourself out there. When things settle down, your brother and I will come visit. Don't worry about anything here. We've got it covered. After that, Mom pulled me into her arms like she used to when I was little, gently patting and rocking me, but I was taller than her now. She couldn't hold me like she used to. My little girl has grown up. She's leaving home, leaving the place she grew up. I want you to have the brightest future, but part of me doesn't want to let go. She wiped her eyes. This must be how all parents feel. You don't understand yet. Once you have a child, there's a piece of your soul walking around outside your body. No matter where you go, my heart will go with you. You, your brother, and your sister, you're all my everything. My sweet little girl who used to sleep in my arms, now you're heading off so far. I'm happy for you, but it hurts too. I patted her back gently, like she used to comfort me. Mom, believe me, I'll come back. In a few years, I'll be home, and I won't leave again. Even if you get tired of me and try to chase me out, I'm staying. I'll be with you forever. She nodded, crying too hard to speak. Dad looked at his watch. It's almost time. Go and learn well. We'll be waiting for you. Lucas took a call just then. His face looked odd. It seemed like he wanted to tell me something but changed his mind. He said nothing, and I didn't ask. My flight was about to leave. I looked at each of them one last time, then turned and walked away without looking back. The plane soared into the sky, surrounded by endless clouds like soft cotton. Peter, I'm finally leaving behind the nightmare of our past life. Next time we meet, I'll be free. Goodbye. Chapter 11. Over a year after I settled into life at Wharton, Roxanna came to visit me. That wasn't surprising, but who she brought with her was Peter's mother, Seraphina Law. Mrs. Law, despite having the same last name, wasn't biologically related to the Law family, just a coincidence of names. She had watched me grow up and had always treated me like a daughter. Peter had kept the divorce a secret from her. She only recently learned the full truth. Elizabeth, I came today to tell you two things. First, I owe you an apology. I failed to raise Peter well, and he hurt you. I've also heard some things from your sister. She paused, then said, Second, the day you flew abroad, his father and I locked him at home. We didn't want him to go after you, but somehow, he escaped. On the way, he got into a car accident. He survived. But his legs, he'll never walk again. He's confined to a wheelchair. I glanced at Roxanna. She pressed her lips together. Her eyes complicated. Roxanna said, "The day you left." The call Lucas received, it was from the hospital. Peter's emergency contact was still your number. During the crash, he kept calling you. Don't blame yourself. He's an adult. He makes his own choices. No one's blaming you. Mrs. Law hugged me. He's lucky to be alive. Elizabeth, live a good life. That's what our family owes you. If there's anything, talk to us. Don't keep things bottled up. I won't stay long. Since the accident, Peter's changed. I don't even know who he is anymore. She spoke with me for a long time. After Roxanna took her to the airport the next day, she finally told me more about Peter. She said ever since the accident, Peter had become cold and unpredictable. Even his parents were afraid of him now. He refused to return home. He moved straight into the company. Then, the law corporation underwent a massive internal purge. It said many senior board members were removed. Roxanna whispered to me that a female student had been obsessively following Peter. Then, suddenly, that girl was committed to a mental hospital. Hearing all this, I couldn't help but suspect, could Peter also have memories of our past life? The corporate purge? He'd done that before, in our last life. It had happened not long after he destroyed the Chan family. While tearing us apart, he'd uncovered rot within the law board. But the girl, a bold guess crept into my mind. Could it be Julia? No, I gave a bitter laugh. Impossible. In our past life, Peter had been obsessed with Julia, so devoted it bordered on insanity. He was ruthless to his enemies. Yes, but to Julia? He was nothing but gentle. I was sure it couldn't be her. After Roxanna left, my life returned to its rhythm of study and solitude. Over the years, Roxanna and Lucas visited me often. So did my parents, though later. I stopped letting them come. Mom's health wasn't great. Roxanna and Lucas still brought occasional updates about Peter. At first, those stories still affected me, but eventually, I listened with calm detachment. That girl who stalked Peter, the one sent to the mental hospital? It really was Julia. I had no idea what Peter was thinking. In our past life, he'd loved Julia to the point of madness. Why had things turned out like this now? Maybe love was always fleeting. All that forever talk. Just nice words we say in the moment. Chapter 12. The day I came home. Not only was my whole family there, Peter's parents came too. In the 4 years I'd been gone, Roxanna had become even more dazzling, and Lucas had taken full control of the company. Nearing his 30s, Lucas had become much more composed. Although the moment he spoke, his true personality always slipped through. Dad had retired and was now focused entirely on taking care of Mom. Roxanna's eyes lit up with delight. My Elizabeth is more beautiful than ever. Is this the power of knowledge? She joked. Looks like I need to go back to school too. Mom hadn't changed much. Dad had taken good care of her. My sweet girl. I'm just glad you're home. Mom. I'm not going anywhere anymore. I'll stay right here with you, even if you try to kick me out. I won't leave. Mom beamed with joy, wiping away a tear. Then she suddenly remembered something. Oh, these are Auntie Law and Uncle Law. They came especially to see you when they heard you were coming home. No matter how Peter treated me, I had always liked Mrs. and Mr. Law. In our past life, they had tried everything to stop Peter, nearly destroying themselves in the process. It was me who had persuaded them to back off. They were good people. People like them didn't deserve the ending they got in our last life. All I ever wanted was for everyone around me to live in peace. For every year to pass with everyone still here. That was my only wish. Auntie, Uncle, it's been a long time. Mrs. Law replied warmly several times. Good child, it's our family that didn't deserve you. Just live well from now on. She lowered her head, dabbing at her eyes. I noticed the gray in her hair. I turned to look at Mr. Law. He looked the same. They weren't much older than my parents, but they looked far more aged. They handed me red envelopes stuffed with money, and gifts they had carefully chosen. Just like when I was a child, they still treated me with love and kindness. After dinner, they said goodbye. As they stepped into their car, I glanced toward the tinted window and felt like someone was watching me. But Mr. and Mrs. Law didn't linger. Once inside, they waved us off and urged us to go back inside. The thought soon left my mind. After resting for 2 days, I fully immersed myself in managing the company. Roxanna never truly wanted this life, she only stayed because she had to. Now that I was back, she handed the reins to me, clapped her hands in relief, and left without a backward glance. She was thrilled, saying she had been dying to leave that gilded cage and go on a global adventure, the life she had always dreamed of. The next day, her bags were packed, and she was ready to go. She had clearly been holding this in for a long time. In our past life, by this time, Roxanna was already gone, but now, she was humming some unfamiliar tune while tying her shoelaces. Full of life, I watched her for a moment, then stepped forward and straightened her hat. Take care of yourself out there. Call me every single day. Got it? Roxanna kissed me on the cheek and pulled me into a bear hug. Got it, little sis. You're practically like my big sister now. She once sent me off at the airport. This time, it was my turn to send her off. After Roxanna left, I devoted myself completely to work. Lucas, while carefree in private, was extremely strict when it came to business. I had seen more than a few employees get scolded harshly for the smallest mistakes. Yet privately, everyone loved him. No one ever had a bad word to say. Maybe it was the generous salaries. As long as the job was done right, Lucas never shortchanged anyone. And if you corrected a mistake, he'd send you a fat bonus right away. Every time, employees would go from trembling in fear to smiling from ear to ear with their red envelope in hand. I had to laugh. Lucas's management style was something I still didn't quite understand. Eventually, Lucas handed over all the big contracts to my team. I handled them all without any need for his input. Chan Corp was thriving more than ever. Then one day, my assistant told me that a longtime business partner had suddenly backed out. The person in charge said they wanted to speak with the lead directly. I looked into the company. It was a relatively new player in the industry, young, but with incredible growth potential. I told my assistant I would handle it myself. The next morning, I arrived at their office. The receptionist warmly welcomed me and led me to the meeting room, saying the director would be with me shortly. The room was minimal, black and white tones throughout. The receptionist brought me a cup of floral tea and quietly exited. The tea's scent was delicate and familiar. It was one I liked. I held the cup and leaned by the floor-to-ceiling window, and I realized I already knew who I was about to meet. It's been a long time. Elizabeth. Peter's deep, hoarse voice echoed behind me. He laughed a few times. The sound was like something out of a nightmare, like it came straight from hell. And in that moment, I knew the Peter standing before me now was the Peter from my past life. Chapter 13. Is that all you brought me here to say? I took a deep breath, not wanting him to see how nervous I was. Then I turned around. Peter was really in a wheelchair. A blanket draped over his legs. Half of his face was hidden in shadow, and a sharp, ruthless aura lingered between his brows. When he looked at me, his eyes held no emotion at all. Peter didn't speak. He just stared at me. Even as my tea turned cold, he still hadn't said a word. I gave up. I couldn't outwait him, not when it came to patience. What exactly do you want to say? If there's nothing, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. I almost thought I misheard him. If it were the Peter from this life, maybe, but the Peter from our last life, paranoid and cruel, would never have apologized. Not even with broken legs. I set the tea down on the table. Words like I'm sorry. Go tell them to the Elizabeth from that life. I walked past him and reached for the door to the meeting room, but a sudden force yanked me backward. I stumbled, and Peter pulled me straight into his arms. The sudden closeness, the scent of him, made me feel sick. I shot up and slapped him across the face. The slap was hard. Blood welled up at the corner of his mouth. He licked it. Feel better? If not, go ahead. Keep going. Freak, lunatic, psychopath. I hurled every cruel word I could think of. My eyes burned red with fury as I grabbed his collar. I asked you so many times, why did you do that to my family? Did you ever answer me? Did you even look at me? You drove us into ruin over and over, and now you say this? What does it mean now? What's the point? Peter, I'm not like you. I'm not as vicious. I can't fight you. But I can run. You already dragged the Chan family to hell once. What? You want to do it again in this life? Well, I'll tell you now, I won't give you the chance. If you want to hurt my family again, then kill me first. Otherwise, I swear, I'll destroy you myself. Peter said nothing, just stared at me until all my rage had been poured out. Until my breathing calmed and my hands stopped trembling, I closed my eyes. Peter, as a boy, as a teen, as a man, we had walked too far together. From childhood sweethearts that others envied to bitter enemies who couldn't coexist. It was absurd. It was tragic. Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't stop them. I collapsed to the floor, covering my face and sobbing. No matter how far I'd come, I still hadn't escaped the shadow of our past life. I had held it in for so long, only to shatter completely the moment I stood in front of Peter again. I won't touch the Chan family. I won't hurt you again. Peter's hand on my shoulder trembled. I don't believe you. After that meeting, I started seeing Peter everywhere. At bidding conferences, at auctions. The most recent was at my mother's birthday gala. Peter's presence cast a heavy silence over the whole event. In the business world now, no one didn't know Peter. His methods terrified even the most seasoned business veterans. Mrs. and Mr. Law tried awkwardly to ease the tension. Lucas and Roxanna stepped in front of me the moment they saw Peter, shielding me protectively, just like when we were kids playing that eagle and chick game. Peter always played the eagle, but I was never the chick. The more we ran into each other, the more I felt sorry for him. Everyone feared him, even his own parents. No one dared stay by his side. No one dared speak to him. Wherever he went, he was alone, brooding in a dark corner with a drink in hand. But I didn't pity him. Later, Lucas told me the Law Corporation had been sending major contracts our way. Chan Corp had broken into the global top 100. Every time I saw Peter, he never said a word to me, just stood there in the distance, watching, only leaving once I left. As our company grew, I thought about him less and less. The last I heard of Peter was news of his death. He died. The cause was a mystery. Some said cancer. Others said suicide by hanging. People feared him while he lived. But after his death, his legend as the youngest business genius spread far and wide. I didn't attend his funeral. He passed while his parents were still alive. My parents were too. I didn't want to watch them bury their son. Lucas, Roxanna, and my parents went. I stayed home. I sat alone, watching the New Year's fireworks. Peter died on New Year's Eve. I poured myself a glass of red wine, through the bright bursts outside my window. I wasn't sure who I was toasting. Maybe I was already a little drunk. I tapped my glass lightly against the window, raising it toward the sky, toward the biggest and brightest firework of the year. Peter, this time, we'll never meet again.